You ever wonder why silence can feel louder than the noise? Why absence starts to scream what presence never had the courage to say? Why after all the begging, the crying, the waiting, it's only when you finally go quiet, when you finally say nothing, that he suddenly finds his voice. Let me talk to the women who've been waiting on answers, who gave love like water and got drought in return. You bent, you broke, you sacrificed your peace in the name of potential. And when you finally gathered the courage to walk away, not with revenge, not with games, but with a holy kind of stillness, a divine kind of nuff, suddenly he starts showing up again. He comes back not because your silence was weakness, but because your silence became your power. That no contact wasn't just strategy. It was healing. It was transformation. While he thought you were sitting by the phone, you were resurrecting, rebuilding, remembering who you were before you forgot yourself, trying to be enough for someone who never saw your full worth. See, men come back after no contact because something changes in the atmosphere when a woman decides she doesn't need closure to close the door. When she decides that peace is more valuable than patterns, when she realizes she can't fix someone who doesn't see they're broken. That silence, it wasn't a punishment. It was protection. Protection of your spirit, your future, your anointing. Because when a man loses access to the version of you that tolerated confusion, he starts craving the clarity he once took for granted. He remembers the way you loved him in full when he only gave you pieces. He realizes your absence weighs heavier than your presence ever did. Because this time, it's not a game, it's not a test, it's a shift. But here's the truth, not every return is redemption. Just because he comes back doesn't mean you're supposed to open the door. Some doors God let close for your elevation, and not every knock deserves your answer. Sometimes the test is not in his leaving. It's in your not letting him back in. You're not being hard. You're being healed. You're not bitter. You're better. You don't have to prove your worth by entertaining what already failed you. You're not the same woman he walked away from. And he's not coming back for who you are now. He's coming back for the version of you he could manipulate, the one who didn't know she was worthy of more. But baby, you know now. You grew now. You found your crown in the silence, your purpose in the pain, your strength in the solitude. And let me tell you something, what God has ahead of you does not require you to go back to what broke you. So when he comes back, and he will come back, don't see it as fate, see it as confirmation. That walking away wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. And sometimes the greatest closure is no contact. And let me tell you something that most people overlook. Your silence is not the absence of power, it's the birth of it. See, when a woman decides to stop explaining herself, stop pleading for love, stop trying to convince someone to see her, that's not weakness, baby. That's power stepping into its rightful place. Because the moment you stop speaking to be heard, heaven starts echoing on your behalf. You see, some people only listen when the noise is gone. When you were calling, texting, showing up with your whole heart on your sleeve, he couldn't hear the value in your voice because he was too full of his own echo. But when you went quiet, when you chose not to respond, not to chase, that's when everything started shifting. He started wondering, why did she stop? Where did she go? Why does it feel different without her energy here? And it hits him not because you shouted your worth, but because you stopped letting him misuse it. That silence, it shook his confidence. It made him question what he thought he could control. Because now you're no longer accessible. You're no longer on the emotional clearance rack. You're exclusive now. And exclusive doesn't beg to be chosen. That's the moment he realizes your silence isn't an empty space. It's a statement. It's the sound of you choosing you. It's the rhythm of a woman walking in alignment, no longer entertaining confusion, no longer feeding chaos. And once you discover that kind of quiet strength, you don't go back to explaining yourself to someone who had ears but refused to hear. You ever notice how people don't appreciate your presence until it becomes your absence? There's something divine about distance. It creates a kind of space where truth has no choice but to rise. When you were always there, always answering the call, always showing up with love on your lips and grace in your hands, he didn't have to think. He didn't have to reflect. Because comfort doesn't challenge a man, it cradles him. But the moment you stepped back, when you stopped chasing, when you stopped explaining and just got quiet, something started to shift. That silence wasn't just stillness, it was God putting you in position. Because when you remove yourself from the noise, when you pull your love, your energy, your presence back, he's left with nothing but the echo of what he lost. That's when the questions start coming, not from you, but from within him. Why do I feel her gone so heavy? Why does her silence feel louder than her words ever did? What was I ignoring that now I can't escape? And that right there is the power of no contact, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to create a necessary gap, a sacred pause where he can't run from what he did, who he was, or how he mishandled the kind of love people pray for. Because reflection doesn't happen in noise. Healing doesn't happen in chaos. Conviction doesn't happen in convenience. Sometimes God will use your silence to preach a sermon his heart can't unhear. So don't you dare second guess your distance. That space you created, it's not emptiness, it's elevation. And if he comes back, it's because that distance exposed what your presence kept covering up the truth. And suddenly, the same woman who was once desperate for clarity, for closure for him, finds herself in a season where the only thing she's desperate for is peace. That's what healing does. And let me tell you, healing doesn't happen in noise. It doesn't happen when you're still caught up in the cycle, still explaining, still hoping he'll change. No, healing happens in the quiet corners, in the space where you finally say, I choose me this time. No, contact isn't about playing games. It's not about trying to make him chase you. It's about stepping away long enough to remember that you were whole before he ever showed up. It's about cutting off the noise so you can hear the whisper of God reminding you who you are. You don't heal by staying in proximity to the pain. You heal by separating yourself from what kept you broken. And baby, don't be surprised when in that healing, you start seeing everything differently. What used to tempt you now looks toxic. What used to excite you now looks exhausting, because healing changes your appetite. You no longer crave attention. You crave alignment. You're not chasing affection anymore. You're chasing assignment. So while he thinks you're sitting by the phone waiting for his return, what he doesn't realize is that the woman he left isn't the woman who's rising. She's wiser. She's lighter. She's covered in grace and standing in strength. She didn't disappear. She evolved. And that evolution started the moment she stopped trying to fix him and started fighting for herself. He's not coming back for the healed you. He's coming back for the version of you who didn't know better, the one who overextended, overcompensated, and called it love. He's not drawn to your growth. He's haunted by the access he used to have to your brokenness, because that broken version of you, she made it easy. She gave him loyalty without commitment. She tolerated confusion and called it potential. She stayed quiet just to keep the peace, even when it was tearing her apart. But let me tell you, when you start healing, when you start rising, when you start recognizing that love shouldn't feel like survival, everything changes. He may come back, but it's not because he's transformed. It's because he's nostalgic. Nostalgic for the version of you who didn't set boundaries. The one who said yes when she should have said no. The one who called dysfunction chemistry and thought emotional chaos meant he cared. But now you've got vision. Now you've got discernment. Now you understand that being available to someone who constantly made you question your worth is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment. And baby, you're done abandoning yourself. You've reclaimed your voice. You've remembered your crown. And just because he returns doesn't mean you have to receive him. Because not every familiar face deserves access to the woman you fought to become. So while he may be chasing who you were, he's not ready for who you are. And the question isn't, will he come back? The real question is, will you still want what you had to heal from become this whole? See, the weight of your absence always hits harder than the comfort of your presence. While you were there, loving him through the inconsistency, forgiving the late replies, covering his immaturity with your patience, he didn't realize he was being held by something rare. He got so used to your grace that he mistook it for guarantee. So used to you showing up even when he gave you every reason not to, that he assumed you always would. But when you finally pulled back, when you finally stopped reaching out, stopped initiating, stopped fixing, that's when reality hit him like a wave. Because your absence doesn't whisper, it roars. And suddenly he starts noticing everything that used to be effortless. The good morning texts that aren't coming, the unconditional support that's gone quiet. The peace you carried that used to calm his chaos, it's missing now. And in that silence, regret starts speaking. Regret has a way of getting loud in empty spaces. He starts replaying the moments he overlooked, the words he dismissed, the way you held him down while he was still trying to find himself. And now that you're not there to cushion the fall, he's left to sit with the impact of what he lost. Not just a woman, but a safe place, a covering, a presence that was pure, powerful, and poured out. But baby, you're not lost. You're just gone. Gone to heal, gone to grow, gone to remember who you were before you settled for half of what you deserved. And now he sees it, not because you begged him to, but because your absence preached a sermon your presence was too gentle to deliver. And oh, let me tell you, when a woman starts healing, really healing, she becomes a different force in the room. You can feel it before she even speaks. Her peace walks in before she does. Her confidence doesn't scream. It whispers in a language only the secure can understand. That's what happens when you stop breaking yourself to build someone else. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because your wholeness starts shining in a world addicted to brokenness. He comes back not just because he misses you, but because he feels the shift. He feels the detachment. He feels that you no longer need what you once begged for. That energy he once fed off of, that soft heart he mishandled, that love he mistook for weakness. It's been refined now. And he can sense it, whether he sees you glowing in pictures or hears your name in rooms you don't even walk in anymore. He knows something changed, because a healed woman doesn't just change how she talks. She changes how she carries herself. Her boundaries are stronger. Her silence is sharper. Her no is holy now. And that man, the one who thought you'd never leave, he starts to realize he no longer has access to the version of you that tolerated confusion. He's not just attracted to you. He's intimidated by who you've become. And baby, that intimidation, that's not your burden to carry. That's the price of growth. That's what it looks like when the girl who gave everything without return becomes the woman who gives nothing without discernment. Your glow up didn't start in your looks. It started in your spirit. And now, without even trying, you're pulling attention from people who once overlooked you, including him. That silence you gave him, that distance you created. It wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It was sacred. Because you finally understood that not everyone deserves access to your heart just because they had history with it. No contact wasn't about making him wonder. It was about making you whole. It was about protecting the parts of you that kept bleeding for someone who never brought a bandage. You weren't being petty. You were being preserved. God will sometimes pull you out of a place you would have never left on your own because he knows what's waiting for you on the other side of peace. And that space you gave him, that space was survival. Because as long as you stayed close to confusion, you kept losing parts of yourself in the name of loyalty. You kept calling dysfunction love because you were afraid of being alone. But the moment you chose silence over chaos, solitude over struggle, and healing over history. Everything changed. And yes, it hurt at first. You questioned yourself. You doubted your strength. But now you see it. That space wasn't rejection. It was redirection. You didn't lose him. You found you. And what you found was worth protecting. That peace you've been walking in, that clarity you've been cultivating, that's not up for negotiation anymore. So when he tries to come back, recognize that the door he's knocking on no longer opens from the outside, because the real you, the healed you, the called you, she don't entertain what she had to escape to survive. She builds boundaries like holy ground. And that protection, that's not attitude, baby, that's anointing. Now listen closely. Just because he walks back through your door doesn't mean the story's about to change. Sometimes a return is not a redemption. Sometimes it's just a rerun. A man coming back after no contact doesn't always mean he's grown or healed or ready to love you the way you deserve. Sometimes he's just chasing the comfort of familiarity. Sometimes he's coming back to what's easy, not what's right. You have to remember, honey, that your worth is not measured by how many times someone leaves and comes back. Your value isn't tied to their indecision or their timing. You can't let a second chance turn into a second heartbreak, because healing means you've seen the pattern. You recognize when love is being offered in pieces, when promises are just words, and when I'm sorry isn't backed by action. So when he returns, don't rush to open that door wide. Don't confuse desperation for desire or loneliness for love. Stand firm in what you know to be true. Because sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is to say no more. No more half-truths. No more maybe one day. No more being the option when you deserve to be the priority. Remember, the woman who chooses herself first won't settle for crumbs when she's worthy of the whole loaf. So if he comes back, ask yourself, not can I forgive him, but is he really ready to value me? And if the answer is anything less than a resounding yes, keep walking. Because not every return is a renewal. Some returns are just lessons reminding you to never forget your worth.